attorney was Thomas Newton. And they would carry out these actions. Cotton Mather was actually a really influential voice during this time. He would participate and often wrote against the use of spectral evidence. He was not kind of for that use of evidence, even though he was very much for the trials themselves. So he was kind of one of those leaders of talking about it. But after this, he wrote a book called The Wonders of the Invisible World, which is about this, and he was quoted with saying that he hoped that this book would encourage a spiritual awakening in the face of widespread religious complacency. So even though he spoke out about this spectral evidence, he was very much for these trials, and it was him and William Stoughton, the lieutenant governor I mentioned earlier, that until their deaths they were still for these trials and did not think there was any guilt involved, so they were all for it. But just to go into the causes, like why would this occur? Why in this year of time would this mass hysteria happen where so many people are accused? In Derek's presentation, you're going over hundreds of years, so it's kind of just pinpointing these times in history that this happens. This is 1 year. So I kind of went into different causes that a lot of people are writing about. I did the top 3 that I found. The biggest one is socio-political development. It was at this time that there's a lot of dissension between the new mercantile society and the old agricultural society. And I want to kind of take time to explain this picture because I know it's really small. But this is supposed to be a map of witchcraft in Salem. It's a map of Salem. And if you can see, there is a line going down the middle, and off to the top is supposed to be in town, where the new mercantile society would be, and underneath is more out in the country. And these little pinpoints here are letters all over here, and there will either be A's for the accuser or W's for being accused of a witch. And in this map, all the ones at the top are A's and most of the ones on the bottom are W's. So you can kind of see right just in that map there was a definite divide between the townspeople, between the newer, younger, richer society. They were often more religious, more into social custom, which could be taken either way. They would live within the town, a very tight-knit community. The people on the outside were considered outliers. They may not follow the same customs that they would on the inside, and they're way more likely to be attacked for that. And then, going into gender roles, women were mostly more likely to be accused of being a witch than men. There were men that were accused, but usually it was because they either spoke out against the trials or were found in a relationship with or in some sort of influence with a woman that was already accused. So women were more often, you can take it to a historical look at the society. Women are supposed to be subservient, they're supposed to be obedient, they are supposed to be this particular sphere in society where they act a certain way, and that was very important. And women's circles were often very cliquey, if I want to use that word. They did not like outsiders, people who didn't want to hang out with them, people who acted differently. So they were much more likely to have petty differences, to be honest, against women against women. Somebody accuses somebody else of cheating, so then they're a witch, or somebody saw their husband look at somebody else, so then they're a witch, so they're discredited in that way. Also, just men going against women, women going against women. It was just a huge role in this society. The second cause was just fear, honestly. There was a lot of tension going on in this time. There was a recent outbreak of Native American attacks. People were wondering if people in the town were being spies for the Native Americans even, working against them, letting these people in. So that was another reason people are very suspicious of everyone, because they never know when the next attack's going to be. Their lives are at stake, so I guess human tendency is to turn inward on themselves. And more fear. It's really, there's a lot of tension at this time. There's cultural differences and keeping up with the status quo, like I've been saying throughout the whole thing. If you are different, you're a really easy target. Like, if you're a high-standing member in society, you go to church every day, you know, you follow all these things, people are not always going to look at you first. But it's very easy to kind of pass the buck to the next person who's way more likely to fall into that stereotype, or who you know as it. There's also been other outlets written down at that time in other communities where people have been very odd and very strange, and they think they can tie it back to that. But basically, one of the biggest things that makes people think this could be a really good response to it is because the symptoms of this poisoning are very much in line with what happened. Physiologically, symptoms include convulsions, tingling sensations, epileptic fits, hallucinations, and psychologically, you get symptoms like mania, psychosis, and delirium. So if you're suffering from this poisoning, not only are you more likely to fall on the floor and have epileptic fits, but you're also way more likely to be suspicious of everyone around you because you're delirious and things like that. So it kind of goes hand in hand, which one it is. And then finally, it could even be a combination of all three. It could be that perfect storm of symptoms that cause that one town to all of a sudden just implode. But lastly, I want to say, I think it's very true that there have been a lot of adaptations taken off of the Salem witch trials, whether they're factual or not. There's been a lot of leeway with it. One of the biggest ones that I was going to talk about was Arthur Miller's The Crucible. And it's a play that can be derived directly from the Salem witch trials. And essentially, this book goes along with it, and it kind of, the book itself and the movie starring Daniel Day-Lewis, which I'll show a trailer from in a second, kind of goes more towards a dramatic reason, maybe like internal strife, betrayal, you'll see in the trailer, and I want to show you because I think it really shows how people have taken it, academic thing to a more dramatic thing, if it will come up. If not, I can talk about it. Well, if not, I can just tell you what happens. In the trailer, there's a lot of flash across the screen in those dramatic trailers, just don't worry about it, were betrayal and lust. In the movie, one man is found to have slept with another man's wife. There's all this tension, anger between women in the society, and basically just imploding that way and showing the fear that just grows and grows and grows, and it results in this. But adaptations, I think, fall under Kelsey's requirement, and that's what she is going to do next. So thank you.
Our last presenter will be Kelsey Radigan, also part of this University of Findlay group. Senior majoring in English with literature and general writing emphasis, and is graduating in the spring and would like to be a book editor.
Oh, thank you, Rose.
The title is The Magical World, Harry Potter and the Impact of Fantasy on the World, and it will, I'm sure, show up shortly.
Yay, technology.
Do you need it for the beginning of yours?
Oh, no, I don't.
Maybe that's why mine.
Yeah, I think it's YouTube. It's trying to download YouTube. So I think you can sort. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll just start in mine while we get the PowerPoint up. Basically, what I have been looking at for a paper I'm writing is the success of Harry Potter. It's a juvenile work written for 3rd and 4th graders. You know, they get more complex and darker, certainly, as the series goes on. But why has Harry Potter, spawned its own theme park, whereas Lord of the Rings is really the go-to series in the fantasy world. Why has Harry Potter far surpassed any others in the genre? So I was looking more at the magical theory in the books and the physical components of controlling magic, who can do magic, as well as social factors. But for the purposes of this presentation, I'm looking more at portrayal of the wizards and witches and how Harry Potter tends to bring back that traditional view of witches and also play with it at the same time. So I'm basically starting out talking about all of the iconic witches and wizards that we've seen in the 20th and 21st century. Starting with Frank L. Baum's Wizard of Oz, where we have, are you a good witch or a bad witch? There's nothing in between. We have Glinda the Good Witch, who dresses in light colors, has a very cheerful voice, and she's not intimidating at all. And then you have the Wicked Witch of the West, comes out in the ball of flames, and she's wearing black, and she's got green skin, and she's terrifying. And in this series, you've got the instruments of control. Glinda's got her wand. Wicked Witch uses her broom for some things. And there's just that clear dichotomy of good and evil. There's no gray areas. Green is also going to be a recurring theme, so keep in mind Wicked Witch is green. So that was the book was first released in 1900. 1902, we saw the first stage version. And then 1935, 1936, we saw the first film, which is really what leads us to, children wanting to dress up as a witch, and I have to have green skin, and I have to have a spot on my face right here. All right. Go through. Okay, so we've got very clear contrast in the witches. Next, we have Gregory Maguire's Wicked, which is a reclamation of really just the Wicked Witch. That was published in 1995 and then made into a musical, I'm sure many of you have heard of, in 2005, which is an even further reclamation of the Wicked Witch, in which she becomes a sex symbol. And she's attractive, everyone wants to be her, the music attracts the audience. Everything about this is really contradictory to the original Wicked Witch that we see. Next book that appears on the scene, we've got Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. Here we have the Wicked Witch as being the beautiful woman, more of the woman as temptress type that we see in earlier tales. And she's dressed in white, so she's more of the good witch, looks-wise, but is in fact the evil one. And then also important in, also Wizard of Oz,